Hello everyone, welcome to the Tim Booker channel. I wish you all a pleasant listening experience. Today, I'm going to interpret a book for you called The Hidden Brain. The author of this book is Shankar Vedantam, who has served as a part-time lecturer at Harvard University and Columbia University. He is also the host of a flagship podcast on National Public Radio, NPR, called The Hidden Brain, which shares its name with this book. In this book, the author explores a topic: how the unconscious controls our behavior. We often believe that our thoughts are under our control, and our actions are the result of careful deliberation. However, this is not always the case. Sometimes, our thoughts and actions do not align, and we struggle to explain why we said certain things or did certain actions at the time. Each of us has experienced situations like this, whether it's losing our temper uncontrollably with a loved one or making a sarcastic remark to a friend, only to regret it later. But in reality, it might not entirely be our fault, it's the result of our hidden brain at work. Hidden brain is a term introduced by the author. Our brain can be divided into the conscious brain, responsible for conscious neural activities, and the hidden brain, which includes a set of factors beyond our conscious control that influence our thoughts and actions, in other words, our unconscious or subconscious. The hidden brain includes groups of neurons beneath the surface of our cerebral cortex, which regulate basic functions like breathing and turning over during sleep. However, in certain advanced areas of the cerebral cortex, such as reading, arithmetic, and more, it can operate beyond our conscious awareness. This includes unconscious facial recognition, reading, and calculations. In other words, some of our higher-level thinking processes are also influenced by the hidden brain. For example, when I decide to invest money in a particular stock, that decision must be entirely made by my conscious brain, right? Not necessarily. Psychologists conducted a study in which they tracked the performance of 10 stocks with easy-to-read names and 10 stocks with difficult-to-read names on the New York Stock Exchange. The results showed that on the first day of listing, the stocks with easy-to-read names outperformed the ones with difficult-to-read names by 11.2%. Scholars refer to this phenomenon as the readability effect. If you were to ask those investors, you'd find that they weren't consciously aware of the impact of stock names on their decisions. For the hidden brain, easy-to-read names bring a sense of comfort, which implies safety, influencing investors' decisions unconsciously. Many of our complex and important decisions are influenced by the hidden brain, and the terrifying part is that we often remain unaware of it. While the readability effect might not be a big deal, our hidden brain can also produce unconscious biases that may lead to significant misjudgments, from minor arguments between friends to acts of terrorism and even genocide. The book provides many real-life examples. The earlier chapters discuss small stories illustrating how the hidden brain operates in our daily lives, while the later chapters delve into more significant and deeper issues. We can see that many mistakes and tragedies result from the unconscious power people remain oblivious to, making it crucial to understand the power of the unconscious. So, let's delve into how the hidden brain controls our behavior and how we can be more vigilant and better resist its unconscious influence. I will interpret this book for you in two parts. First, we will discuss how the hidden brain serves us and why it's uncontrollable yet essential. In the second part, we'll explore the negative effects of the hidden brain, the unconscious biases it creates, the misjudgments it leads to, and how we can regain control with our conscious brain. So, let's officially dive into this book. The hidden brain affects various aspects of our daily lives. Today, we'll focus on two areas: intimate relationships and social life. First, let's talk about the role of the hidden brain in intimate relationships. Have you ever noticed a paradoxical phenomenon? When a stranger achieves something, we generally appreciate and congratulate them. Similarly, when someone close to us accomplishes something, we can genuinely feel happy for them. However, there's an added condition: their achievement should be in an area that doesn't interest us. If they excel in a field we're passionate about, our admiration may become less pure, and jealousy may creep in. Moreover, the closer the relationship, the stronger the jealousy. We find ourselves proud of their accomplishments while feeling defeated. A social psychologist has studied this psychological conflict in people. He discovered that when one partner succeeds in the other partner's professional field, resentment and jealousy emerge. In his experiments, some individuals even intentionally hindered their partner's success, although they claimed to be happy for their partner's success during interviews. They couldn't understand why they felt that way or explain their behavior. This phenomenon doesn't just occur in romantic relationships and friendships, it can also be observed in parent-child relationships. The psychologist observed the relationships between famous male scientists and their fathers. He found that when both father and son were scientists in the same field, as the son's success grew, the relationship between them deteriorated. However, when the father and son had different professional fields, the more successful the son, the better their relationship. In other words, even our own family members can threaten our self-esteem if they surpass us in our field. Faced with this situation, our hidden brain activates protective measures in intimate relationships. Let's look at an example. The author has two friends who are a married couple. The husband's name is John, and the wife's name is Wenyu. They are both renowned researchers in the field of Alzheimer's disease. In this specialized field, they have each achieved a certain level of success. According to the pattern we discussed earlier, their relationship could potentially breed jealousy and competition, but they have always maintained harmony. The secret to their compatibility lies in complementing each other. They divide their daily tasks, working in a complementary, non-competitive manner. For instance, they both acknowledge that Wenyu excels in experimental science and enjoys engaging in academic discussions, while John is an expert in clinical issues and excels in social interactions. To avoid encroaching on each other's strengths, they have adopted a strategy of performing different tasks. This way, they can be described as a strong, harmonious partnership, each acting as an assistant in the other's career. Isn't this married couple fortunate, and their approach to their relationship almost perfect? But what I'm about to say next might shatter this love story. Social psychologists have found that when couples are emotionally close, they automatically and unconsciously divide complementary domains. This is the protective measure we mentioned earlier. The hidden brain realizes that competition could threaten an intimate relationship, so it pushes both individuals toward complementarity. If one partner originally liked task A but noticed that the other partner preferred task A even more, they would unconsciously change their preference, claiming to prefer task B instead. If they were on their own, John might conduct some research in experimental science, and Wenyu might also be an outgoing communicator. However, in this relationship, they unconsciously accept their respective roles, allowing them to view each other as collaborators and intimate partners, rather than competitors. When making speeches or giving presentations, they may say that without each other, they wouldn't have achieved such success. In reality, this belief might be an unconscious bias. Even without each other, they could still do well. But without this belief, their relationship might lack an essential support pillar. You see, our hidden brain is always looking out for itself and perceiving others' success as a threat. It has the potential to disrupt intimate relationships, but it can also be used to weave a finely knit web of dependency, making relationships more secure. In addition to intimate relationships, our hidden brain plays an essential role in our social lives. The author presents an unconventional view in this book, suggesting that our adherence to laws, social morals, and reliance on them is not solely a product of our conscious mind but also our unconscious. A researcher conducted an experiment in a break room where there was a beverage cabinet containing tea, coffee, and milk. The cabinet had a notice attached at eye level. This notice had a small decorative picture at the top and displayed the prices of tea, coffee, and milk below. Purchases were based on the honor system. Employees would choose a drink, then leave money in the collection box. The beverage cabinet was tucked away in a blind spot, and employees could take drinks without paying, and it would go unnoticed. This system had been in place for many years. Recently, without the knowledge of the employees, the researcher spent 10 weeks tracking the weekly sales of milk and the money in the box. It was expected that the money in the box should remain relatively consistent week after week. However, the researcher discovered that on odd-numbered weeks, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, the money in the box was 3 times that of even-numbered weeks. Why did this discrepancy occur? The answer was surprisingly simple because the researcher quietly switched the small decorative picture at the top of the notice. During odd-numbered weeks, the picture displayed pairs of eyes watching people, while during even-numbered weeks, the picture showed different flowers. This seemingly minor change had a significant impact on people's honesty. Later, the researcher asked the office employees if they had noticed the weekly change in the picture. They all shook their heads in confusion. No one had noticed the alteration in the image. However, this tiny change had a substantial effect on people's honesty. Even though the pairs of eyes were nothing more than blurry images downloaded from the internet, when people's hidden brain felt like they were being watched, they became more honest. Our focus is usually on what's directly in front of us, and we don't constantly pay attention to peripheral vision. We hope that there's nothing significant happening in the periphery, but if there is, we want to be alerted to it. When our conscious brain is absorbed in what's in front of us, the hidden brain remains vigilant in the periphery. Without the need for conscious intervention, it responds directly to what it sees, without reporting to the conscious brain. Although the hidden brain saw the picture on the notice, its analysis was imprecise, unable to distinguish between a picture and real eyes. Thus, it reminded employees to abide by the rules, as if they were genuinely being monitored. However, this experiment alone is not sufficient to prove the author's point. To demonstrate that we adhere to ethical and moral standards because of the hidden brain, the best way is to examine what actions we would take without the hidden brain. There is a condition called frontotemporal dementia. In this condition, specific areas of the frontal and temporal lobes in the brain atrophy, primarily affecting regions that regulate social behavior. These areas tell us whether it's polite to reach across a crowded dinner table to get food, how to greet someone you're not familiar with, and whether the person at the bar looking at you is just scanning the room or intentionally staring at you. Individuals with frontotemporal dementia often gain heightened observational and analytical abilities but lose their grasp of social norms like table manners. Therefore, our ability to integrate into society and understand social norms depends significantly on the hidden brain. It guides us on how to navigate the world and helps us fit into various social networks. People with frontotemporal dementia cannot comprehend these unspoken rules. After developing this condition, their emotions become extremely apathetic, making it difficult for them to empathize with others. For instance, they may comment on someone's appearance or weight directly to their face. When they walk into a store and see something they want, they might simply take it without considering the consequences. They are not unaware of the need to pay or distinguish right from wrong, they simply don't care. Therefore, individuals with frontotemporal dementia not only lose their marriages and friendships due to their apathy but also typically violate the law and lose their jobs. This demonstrates that one of the most crucial aspects of being a law-abiding and responsible citizen who can fit into society is the ability to understand social rules. We often believe that we adhere to rules and social norms because we learn them from television and textbooks, but research into brain diseases suggests that our concept of ethics and morals is not only passed down from legal codes but is also derived from ancient rules encoded in the algorithms of our hidden brain. Just like the tea room experiment we mentioned earlier, the hidden brain ensures that we follow ethical and moral standards, adapting to our surroundings and abiding by social norms, making us functional members of society. Alright, we've discussed two essential aspects of the hidden brain for us, enhancing our intimate relationships and helping us adapt to society. Now, let's delve into the negative aspects of the hidden brain. In our daily lives, the hidden brain often brings us unconscious biases. Each of us believes that we have a strong moral compass, are free from prejudice and discrimination, and know how to speak in a socially acceptable manner. So, why do some people still make mistakes or say things that seem utterly foolish in front of a camera? Shouldn't they be more rational and cautious in their speech? The truth is, both 6-year-old children and 30-year-old adults harbor unconscious biases, and these biases don't necessarily diminish with age. The reason we become more tolerant is that our conscious mind gains the ability to control these biases. Adults consciously reject stereotypes and suppress negative associations hidden in their minds because they understand that making sweeping generalizations about a group is a foolish act. When adults need to express their views clearly, their conscious mind sits down and talks with their hidden brain. If the conscious mind were a pilot, the hidden brain would be the autopilot on an airplane. It doesn't need to be engaged unless the pilot is distracted. But in moments of stress, when the conscious mind is overwhelmed, the ability to suppress the hidden brain's biases diminishes. This is when we observe attitudes that people typically hide surfacing. This is why individuals often say foolish things in front of the camera. We often assume that older people have deeper biases than younger people, and there's some truth to this. On the one hand, their ability to control their brains weakens, making it more likely for biases to emerge. On the other hand, during their formative years, people were often free to express their biases, and prejudice was sometimes the norm. So, their ability to restrain these biases is somewhat limited. Hence, when people lose control of their hidden brain, it might be due to youth and immaturity, a momentary lapse of judgment, or age-related cognitive decline. In all these cases, people are vulnerable to the influence of their unconscious biases. This is why even individuals who seem perfectly sensible sometimes perplexingly make certain statements. It's not necessarily that they are lying, but that they are unaware of their hidden brain's unconscious biases. If, in our daily lives, the hidden brain leads to unconscious biases, in certain special circumstances, it can lead to severe misjudgments. Today, we'll discuss one such special scenario, disaster evacuation. In this book, the author shares a peculiar incident from the 9/11 terrorist attacks in the United States. There was a company called KBW in the World Trade Center, which was an investment bank. Their workspace spanned the 88th and 89th floors of the South Tower. During the terror attacks, almost all employees on the 88th floor successfully evacuated, while those on the 89th floor tragically perished. Why did such a difference occur within the same company? When the first hijacked plane struck the North Tower, employees on both the 88th and 89th floors experienced the same confusion. They heard the intense explosion sounds and saw thick smoke, but nobody knew what had happened. So, what should they do in such a situation? The building's public address system instructed South Tower employees not to move, not to risk evacuating the building and being struck by debris falling from the North Tower. It sounded reasonable, but at the time, nobody knew that 16 minutes later, a second hijacked plane would strike the South Tower. The employees on the 88th floor, after hearing the first explosion, immediately began to evacuate, whereas those on the 89th floor remained at their desks. In hindsight, evacuating immediately was the right decision. However, the key issue wasn't that employees on one floor made the correct choice while those on the other made an erroneous one. The critical point was that nearly everyone on both floors made the same decision. One might think that individuals would make their own judgments. If everyone independently decided whether to stay or leave, shouldn't the results have been more evenly balanced between the two floors? Sociological research on disaster evacuations has shown that, during a disaster, people unconsciously surrender decision-making to the group. When a catastrophe occurs, people unconsciously seek consensus with those around them. They want a common interpretation of what's happening and what they should do next because, in the face of a significant threat, our hidden brain generates a strong drive to have a shared explanation for the ongoing events. Group consensus provides comfort. From an evolutionary perspective, following the crowd was typically a safe choice, but it can sometimes backfire, particularly in modern disaster situations where the group's comfort often puts individuals in peril. This is because modern threats are complex, and sometimes no one in the group knows exactly what's going on. While the group provides comfort, seeking individual escape can create anxiety. But in disaster scenarios, anxiety is the appropriate response, and false comfort can be deadly. Returning to the KBW company in the 9/11 events, the only distinction between the 88th and 89th floors was that on the 88th floor, there was a person named Aguirre who reacted quickly upon hearing the first explosion. He ran through the entire floor, urging everyone to evacuate. He also didn't know about the second plane, he took a gamble. But in such a tense situation, as long as one person firmly calls for evacuation, the rest will often follow suit. On the 89th floor, no such individual appeared, and people looked at each other, ultimately choosing to stay. We typically assume that when an alarm goes off in a workplace, people will immediately get up and leave. However, when alarms sound, people's first instinct is to look at others. Individuals working alone will often jump up from their seats faster than those in group settings. The exact floor you are on is not as crucial as the size of the group you belong to. The larger the group, the more time it takes to reach a consensus, or in other words, the longer the evacuation time wasted. After a disaster, we often ask about the number of usable exit routes, the clarity of signage, and the extent of disaster drills. These aspects are important, but they don't address the role played by the hidden brain. Understanding this, we can improve disaster education. Firstly, we should caution people that they have a tendency to delegate decision-making to the group, and conformity isn't always the wise choice. Secondly, offices with larger staff numbers should conduct more disaster drills than those with fewer employees. Having discussed the impact of the hidden brain on those who are trapped, let's now examine whether the thinking of the extremists who carry out acts of terror is also influenced by unconscious biases. We typically assume that the motivation of these extremists is religious belief. However, research has found that while their actions often masquerade as religious, many suicide terrorists have no religious background, some don't even believe in God or are atheists. They are not insane, and their rate of mental illness is lower than that of the general population. They aren't brainwashed fools either. So, how can we explain their logic? In reality, the perpetrators of these attacks are unconsciously influenced by small group psychology. The common factor among extremists isn't religion or specific political ideologies, it's small group psychology. They typically belong to a small, exclusive group that thrives on exclusion, which is a core attraction. The opportunity to join such a group is limited, and this affirmation means a great deal to extremists. Note that this affirmation is in quotation marks, it's special and unique. These individuals come together and form a tight-knit brotherhood, they act together, share fantasies, and live together. They even marry each other's sisters, becoming their own universe. This kind of small group effectively isolates its members from the external world. In daily life, we encounter various people and multicultural perspectives, which prevent us from viewing things from a singular angle. However, the small groups of extremists don't operate this way. They undergo a strict selection process, share a common worldview, and within this small universe, they lose sight of the normal world and conventional values. So, for their blood brothers and to prove themselves within the group, to ensure the survival of this so-called small community, they willingly engage in actions that are shocking to the rest of us. Our hidden brain seeks recognition and purpose, it provides the drive to strive and prove oneself. On an unconscious level, we all want to establish our uniqueness and belong to a group. Many people have experienced the pressure of small group psychology, whether it's in college fraternities or sororities, or within small groups at work. Many people, due to the psychological pressure of small groups, end up behaving in ways that go against their nature because the hidden brain instinctively craves recognition and conformity to the group. For extremists, this small group psychology represents the extreme manifestation of these tendencies. Listening to all this about the negative effects of the hidden brain might make it seem like there's little we can do about it. In fact, the author of this book doesn't provide any specific solutions. In a figurative sense, our only recourse is to engage our rational thinking, make our conscious mind work, and engage in a conversation between our conscious and hidden brains, not allowing ourselves to be completely controlled by the hidden brain. However, there is indeed a technique in the field of psychoanalysis called making the unconscious conscious, which we can borrow from. It involves exploring our unconscious thoughts and conflicts and expressing them in language or writing. For instance, when you unconsciously make a biased statement and realize it's inappropriate, you can ask yourself why you had such thoughts. What caused these hidden biases in your unconscious? Were they related to your past experiences or influenced by a friend? This provides an opportunity for self-awareness and self-reflection. In reality, listening to books like these about brain science and the unconscious is a way of making the unconscious conscious. By gradually and more deeply understanding the workings of the brain and the logic behind our thoughts and behaviors, we can heed the words of philosopher Spinoza, as long as we have clear ideas, we have no worries. So, up to this point, this book has provided you with its core content. Congratulations, you've finished listening to another book. Thank you for tuning in to the Tim Booker channel. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, give it a thumbs up, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom with practice and work toward our financial goals, creating a brighter future. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.